Morning.
Morning.
There's plenty of room up front. Come on up. There's handouts in the back. And while I'm talking about the handouts, unfortunately, in all that was happening back in D.C. at the time, those handouts went out, and some of the print on there is extremely small. You're probably going to have a difficult time reading it. But know that the handouts will be up on the website, and they'll be in regular PowerPoint slides, just single slides for each one. And they're broken down into sections, so you'll be able to print off any that you might need. So again, we apologize for that, but things were happening rapidly back in DC, and we didn't have an opportunity to look at it before it went out.
Well, y'all finally got away, huh?
Before we get started, one order of business, and that is today is August 11th, and that's a pretty special day other than the fact that you're here for a seminar. Today is Joy Elam's birthday, so if everyone could wish Joy happy birthday.
Don't we sing, Joe?
21 years old, she's now able to drink and gamble. We can get everyone to kind of move up so we can see all of you. Well, what I'd like to talk about this morning, and the format this year is a little different. We only have a half hour. After this, we'll be going into our service and legislative seminar, which includes a panel from the Hill and a panel from VA. And we have some tough questions for them, and I hope that all of you will stay. What I'd like to do now is talk about the legislation that was just passed. I'm sure all of you have heard about the health care access bill that was signed into law on this past Thursday by President Obama. It passed with large support in both the House and Senate. But what I'd like to do is just get a sense. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'd like for you to hold your hand up if it applies to you, and not put your hands down until we get to the end if everything continues to apply to you. So all those who are enrolled in VA healthcare, would you raise your hand? All of you who use VA for all or part of your healthcare, keep your hands up. Those of you who live either 40 miles from a VA medical facility, and that includes a CBOC, or have been waiting longer than 30 days for an appointment, keep your hands up. Everyone else, put your hands down. Okay, so out of the larger group, you can all put your hands down now. Just a few of you will qualify for the choice card, Veterans Choice Card at this point. According to VA, there are about 500,000 veterans that live more than 40 miles from a VA medical facility. So talking about the law, what it does right now, it applies only to those veterans who are currently enrolled in VA as of August 1st of this year, or to new veterans who fall into that window of 5 years after combat. So if they haven't gone beyond those 5 years and they enroll for VA care in that window, they will also qualify for this. But you have to be 40 miles outside of a VA medical facility, or if it's across state lines, it's 20 miles, or be waiting 30 days or more. So those people right now will be the ones that qualify for this choice card. And what Congress has done is they've provided $10 billion to VA to pay for that purchased care. Now that program will run either for 3 years or until that $10 billion runs out, whichever comes first. After that, it's hard to say what Congress might do. Congress also provided an additional $5 billion for VA to hire doctors and clinicians and to build their in-house capacity, which is important because our biggest concern was that if all they did was focus on the non-VA care, that in 3 years or when that $10 billion ran out, that VA would be in a worse shape than they are now, because all of those veterans who were expecting to get care would be out of luck if Congress didn't do something to provide VA with additional resources. Also, this legislation allows VA to go forward with the 27 leases of VA facilities that were on hold the past 2 years. So they'll be able to expand their access of care to veterans in the community. And we hope that this runs well. Again, concern is that a lot of veterans are going to have an expectation that VA is going to be able to handle their care quickly. And I'm not sure that they're going to be able to do that immediately. I mean, there are some problems. Number one, Congress gave them 90 days to promulgate regulations that talk about how they're going to implement this, and there's still a lot of questions. We heard from one of our past national commanders that in his area, his director told him that they were only going to use that money to provide for primary care and nothing else. Now, the law doesn't specify the type of care, so it could be specialty care or it could be primary care, but in his facility, his director thinks that they're only going to be using it for primary care. So we've already let VA know that situation. But I think the expectations of veterans are going to be very high, thinking that they're going to qualify for this, they're going to be able to go out in the private sector and get whatever care they need, and it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, VA has 90 days also to get those choice cards out to veterans, and initially, obviously the easiest people to identify are those who live outside of the 40-mile radius. So those of you that had your hands up for that, you should be getting a choice card regardless of whether you're waiting 30 days or more. And those people that are waiting 30 days or more, you should be getting one of those cards in the future. Now, VA, when they briefed us, they had some concerns. They thought they might be able to get the regulations out in time within the 90 days, but they had concerns on the choice card because in the legislation, Congress specified what needs to be on that card. So it's different. If you're getting your care right now from VA, you're going to get a different card. And VA has to produce that card. And they're not sure whether or not their current vendor can do that. And if their current vendor can't, then they're going to have to go outside, get a new vendor, which requires them to, get bids. So there could be some problems there. So understand there are going to be problems with this program rolling out. Not all of the problems are going to be VA's fault. And I would hope that as this program does roll out, if you are having problems, you let us know. You let us hear from you. I mean, one of the biggest problems, I think, was that no one in Phoenix shared any of these problems with us. We had no idea of what was going on. We rely on our members, on our service officers, on our volunteers. When you come across problems, let us know so that, if this is a serious problem, we can deal with it. But we need to know. We need to hear from you. We can't resolve all the issues, but it certainly helps to know what's happening out there that's impacting the care you're getting from VA. Ask my staff if there's anything they want to add to this legislation, what this legislation will do, and then we'll open it up. If you have any questions about this health care bill or about anything else, I would be more than happy to answer your questions during this session. Adrian, Joy, anything you want to add on the legislation? One of the handouts we have back there is a simple one-pager on what this bill will do, so that should give you some additional information, fill in some of the blanks. I know right now I've already seen several articles about the Merit Service Protection Board and their concerns. Part of this legislation also deals with how VA will treat its SES in the future, and you know, some of the problems that have been uncovered have been based on the fact that there were some areas that were cooking the books. So Congress decided to change the law as it applies to VA's SES service, and that is if the secretary determines that he's going to or she's going to fire someone, that individual has 21 days to appeal, and the Merit Protection System Board is concerned about that and the fact that some of the appellate process has been lopped off of the top. If a decision isn't made within the time frame, then the VA wins and the employee is out of a job. Their money, I believe, their salaries are also stopped immediately. So there are some problems. There are things that need to be worked out. But Joy, is there anything else?
Yeah, I guess we would like to mention, you know, we were pleased that the bill did include $5 billion to increase capacity for hiring physicians and medical staff. One of the things that we heard early on was just about so many vacancies at the various facilities, and you know, our belief is that much of the backlog in terms of waiting and the access issues really are related to that specific issue. I mean, if they don't have enough clinicians and medical staff to see people, they can only do so much. So you know, we think it's so important that Congress reinvest in VA in maintaining a strong healthcare system. With the choice card, I mean, you know, what was identified, I mean, people need to be seen, and again, that's just a temporary measure to make sure that people can get seen in a timely manner. And I think a way to see if addressing the rural health issue, which veterans living outside the 40 miles from a VA facility, you know, how does that work for veterans? We do have some concerns about managed care. We want to make sure that the care is coordinated by VA for those veterans who need to go out of the system, so that we're making sure you get quality care. If you need to go out, that those records get associated with your medical record at VA. So when you come back to the system, or if you're needing something at VA, that they know who you've been seen. We're concerned about what's going to happen with medications if they're ordered. How is VA going to handle that? Or payment issues. I mean, VA pays at Medicare rates, so if you, on the outside, on your own, as you know, you have to find your own clinician and work out, that payment arrangement. But we're hoping with some of the networks that VA is engaging with, Tri-West and HealthNet, they're familiar with the care coordination model, and we think that's in the best interest of veterans. I'll let Adrian mention a few things.
One thing too is just because you have the card doesn't mean you're going to be able to go out there and get that care. VA has to authorize it, and it has to be from a doctor who's willing to accept Medicare rates or is already providing federal care through any of the Indian Health Care or TRICARE, those issues. So, Again, it's not going to be just getting a card and going down to see Doc Jones in your neighborhood. VA is going to have to authorize that.
Yeah, so as many of you know, this bill really is just one of a number of authorities that VA has to be able to buy care in the community. One of the things that we're struggling with is possibly the expectations that the veteran community has that this bill will solve everything if they've been waiting more than 30 days for care. It was mentioned briefly, but never really delved into were two things that we have been trying to figure out, and we're not really sure if the information is available, is whether the private sector can actually see these 500,000 veterans. You know, are they going to be able to be seen within 30 days in the private sector if that is, you know, where they're being sent to by VA? And if they don't, if the private sector can't provide the care within 30 days, what happens then? You know, there are expectations that this bill is supposed to do something, and the reality may be totally different. So we'll have to deal with that as the time comes. And as VA has mentioned before, this is just one tool. You know, they started working on this problem before this bill came out because they have authority right now to buy care in a community. And we fully expect them, the VA, to use the existing authority as well as this new tool.
I would also mention in your handouts, you have the myths and facts on VA healthcare funding. You know, as Joe indicated, we really need you to be our eyes and ears, and we also need you to be talking with your members of Congress. We've had many people come up to us at convention here and tell us they're getting great care at VA. They've been seen in a timely manner. They're very satisfied with their care. So, you know, we definitely want you to be able to share that with your members if that's the case. If there's problems, let them know that as well. But take a look at the myths and facts sheet. There's been a lot of media attention on this issue. A lot of misinformation has been put out there. And when we heard about it, you know, Adrian and Peter put together a myths and facts sheet, you know, so that you'll have solid information about what the reality is in terms of VA's budget. A lot of people keep talking VA's just been given so much funding for medical care, and that percentage of increases are exorbitant, and, you know, just putting good money after bad. Obviously, we don't think that's the case, and we've also, in our media advisory handout, I think, you know, take a look at that as well, because that will inform you from our point of view what, you know, our position is on the card. I mean, we're glad about, you know, providing access to care, but there's a number of concerns with the bill that, you know, have to be worked out. So we're going to need to hear from you if there's a problem in your community.
And one thing I'd like to point out right now is, how did we get here? I mean, you know, how did VA get in this situation? And I can tell you, having dealt with this for a long time, that all you need to do is go back, excuse me, go back 10 years and look at what the independent budget, which DAV is a co-author along with Paralyzed Veterans of America, AMVETS, and Veterans of Foreign Wars, what we've been saying just over the last 10 years. In medical care alone, we've asked for $7.8 billion more than the President or Congress appropriated. In construction, it's $9 billion. So that's just the last 10 years. And, you know, another thing to look at, and the commander mentioned it in his opening remarks, is 11 years ago, in 2003, May of 2003 to be exact, a task force that was established in May of 2001 by President Bush reported out. And this task force was to look at improving the delivery of health care to our nation's veterans. And what they found in May of 2003 was that there was a wait list as of January of that year of 236,000 1,000 veterans waiting 6 months or more for either primary care or follow-up care. That's almost 250,000 veterans that were waiting at that time, 6 months or more. They also found that there was a mismatch between the funding VA received for health care and the demand for that health care. And in that report, now again, May 2003, there weren't many post 9/11 veterans coming into the system yet. At that point, the war in Afghanistan was relatively new and we were just getting involved in the war in Iraq. So the veterans at that time were mostly Gulf War veterans, first Gulf War and older. But they found that if that mismatch wasn't addressed and if Congress didn't provide full funding for VA, that there would be problems in the future with access to care and possibly the quality of VA health care. So 11 years ago, this task force made those comments, made their recommendations, and they were ignored. They were ignored by the administration. They were ignored by Congress. We tried to push forward those recommendations. We tried to show Congress that, you know, here's verification of what we've been saying, but nothing was done. So now, 11 years later, VA is in this mess, and again, you know, there was some wrongdoings that went on and that needs to be addressed, and DAV wants those people that have done any of the wrongdoings held accountable. But, you know, the bare facts are that VA has not had the funding necessary to meet the demand and to fulfill their mission that they have been tasked with. So, again, look at those myths and facts. And it's so frustrating because we see letters from members of Congress that say since 2002, VA funding has increased by 230-something%.
256.
And you know what they're doing is they're mixing compensation, the mandatory side of the House, and the discretionary side of the House, putting it all together, and then, you know, looking at that increase. And again, if you look back in 2002, there were roughly about 2.2 million disabled vets. Today, there's almost 4 million disabled vets receiving compensation for VA. Back prior in 2002, there was no post 9/11 GI Bill, which increased funding for the GI Bill from roughly about $3 billion annually to $11 billion annually, and that's on the mandatory side. Back in 2002, there wasn't a program for caregivers of post 9/11 veterans. So you can't just compare that VA was treating X number of patients in 2002 and today they're treating increase of only a small amount and argue that, you know, we've given VA all the money they need. So be aware of that. I know some of you have probably received letters from your members of Congress that have said the same thing. Use those myths and facts and explain to your Congress members and to their staff it's not true. Give them copies of the myths and facts. Address the issue when you can. And again, as the commander pointed out on Saturday at the opening session, we want advanced appropriations for all of VA programs. It's important. And if you, during Executive Director Gary Augustine's presentation, there was one picture up there that was just so telling with a veteran standing there in front of VA trying to get their claims work done with a sign out there apologizing for the inconvenience that they had to be shut down. And, you know, veterans are hurt by how Congress is dealing with our budget. So take back two things. Number one, VA needs adequate funding to ensure that our nation's disabled veterans are taken care of, and two, that they need advanced appropriations to ensure that never again will veterans suffer when Congress is so dysfunctional that they can't pass a budget on time. And I think, Joy?
I would just add, you know, there's been a number of hearings being held, just continual hearings about VA, and specific issues have been addressed. And over this past entire Congress, you know, a number of hearings have been held regarding the infrastructure issues that VA is dealing with, the IT issues that VA is dealing with. I mean, these are well-documented issues where, you know, GAO or the IG has issued a report about those systems. They need to be updated. The scheduling system was one that we know is over 30 years old, apparently, and has been patched and patched and patched, put together. But these are now medical tools that are being used. They need to update those systems. They're trying to see patients, put the most money towards patient care, primary care, specialized care, but at the same time, you can't let your infrastructure fall down around you. VA has identified in its own capital infrastructure plan the need for a significant amount of money to even just maintain its system properly, which it hasn't been getting, let alone to complete the leases that need to be done, building new structures in certain locations. So keep that in mind as well, that, you know, and we've talked about this in the independent budget repeatedly, that these issues keep getting ignored, and then VA is blamed for, you know, an issue that sometimes relates to some of the problems that they're having with infrastructure. And also, you know, we have to, in maintaining the system, it's important to remember the things that VA does that we don't see in the private sector. Many of the specialty cares specialty care that VA provides in spinal cord injury, blind rehabilitation, traumatic brain injury, mental health for post-traumatic stress disorder, and other specifically war-related, the impact of war-related trauma. So those are really important things. VA's research that's focused on veteran-focused, looking at, you know, issues to make sure that veterans have every opportunity to recover. Those are really important things that VA does. We want them to be able to maintain that, because for the long run, that's the community that we know is going to be caring for veterans for the lifetime, for many veterans. So we really want you to emphasize the importance of VA to you. We heard one great story. I think it was Murph told us that they held an Employee Appreciation Day, a barbecue, and had over 600 of VA employees come to that, and they were just really, really appreciative that DAV recognized them and the work that they do every day, day in and day out, to see veterans. So if that's the case in your facility, there's good people out there. Be sure to tell them thank you and mention, because it's a difficult time for VA right now. And there's many good people that are providing quality care and going the extra mile for disabled veterans.
We do have a few minutes. If there are any questions, there's a mic right there in the center, and I see someone standing there.
Yes, sir. Good morning to you and your people and members and guests. I get active. I'm very active, more than probably most. And I've met various members of Congress in the Senate and the House, even personally giving me time, including talking to the personal assistants of the President in the White House, along with law enforcement, along with the office.
What's your question?
All right. The question is that the problem with the parts of the VA, although there are very good people there too, is that one thing that some people don't realize, and I have gotten this directly to some of their executives that were pushed out who were trying to do the right job. You have hundreds, if not maybe thousands, of old empty buildings that as of today, the VA is still paying contracts and rents, leases on, totally empty, where the veteran population moved and they can no longer use, and they will not cancel those contracts because they're in various districts or states. And that is uncountless amounts of money. Another thing is federal law enforcement wants to get involved and clean up the VA and have admitted that there's federal racketeering going on and are not allowed to be addressed. We need, and I've tried to do this in the past, a resolution to have and allow federal law enforcement to go into the VA and clean up this federal racketeering.
Well, we don't
if
need a
our
resolution. I mean, that's, you know, that's a given.
No,
we have some people standing behind you who have questions
okay,
also.
so shut it down and just...
No, you got to say your piece, but I want to hear some questions.
Well, I need you to address that.
Go ahead. Come to my office afterwards. We'll talk some more. We talked earlier. Go ahead. Next person.
Jamil Khan, United States Marine, combat veteran. I want to bring this question of expectation of a veteran. In Vietnam, if I lose my leg, my corpsman will give me medicine so I can die there because they cannot helo lift me. In Afghanistan, if I lose both legs, both arms, I can get to a mobile hospital and I'm saved. Today, we have $9 billion given for the construction of the hospital. When I walk in that hospital, I don't care how it looks like. I want to see someone who can hear me and give me help. I have a mental illnesses, I have all kind of scars on me. The only thing I want to bring to you is the voices of all those like me who do not have transportation access, who have all types of problems, trying to get to the system that's supposed to help me. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. We need to be quick. We're running out of time, so if you keep your questions or statements short.
Jim Leaker, Chapter 90 out of Georgia. I was honored to be part of the group that was at the Keep the Promise rally. And during that period of time, every staffer, every congressman, every senator spoke greatly about how much they were in favor of advance appropriations and the great things the DAV was doing. And like, what was it, 2 days later, the thing got locked up and basically pitched out, even after it had been approved by everybody and their brother. What's going on with that? Is it going to be brought back up again, and what are we doing to push that forward?
We're going to be working it hard between now and when Congress ends. We probably be doing a big push here once we get back. We'll be talking to members. We've been doing so. One of the biggest problems, and unfortunately, what's happened on the healthcare side hasn't helped, because one of the arguments that Congress uses is that we give VA this money a year in advance, we lose control, and we can't get VA to do what it needs to do. So they're concerned about the discretionary portion of that, which would deal with the claims process, the cemetery system, research, IT. Not too much concern about the mandatory, but when we get back, we'll probably be doing another big push, probably several times before this Congress ends, and hopefully get that legislation moving. Yes, sir.
Jim Dempsey, Commander, Department of Michigan, Chapter 13. My wife is a coordinator for the Ann Arbor VA Oncology Clinic. We have several hundreds, possibly thousands of veterans who receive their oncology care at that one facility. It's the only facility in the Lower Peninsula that is able to provide oncology services. I am extremely concerned about the fact that, as you alluded to, Joe, earlier, that there are facility directors who are saying that only primary care will be covered under this. Now, this is a specialty care. We have veterans that are unable to receive their treatment due to the distances. 200, 300, 400 miles each way they have to travel, sometimes scheduled 3 times a week on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday type situation. I'm concerned about the discretion from the facility directors in allowing or denying those type of services.
And I don't know that they have that discretion, and that's why we'll be raising that. We've already raised it with the liaison for VA, But we will continue to raise that. And if you hear of that in your facility, because it's only been one facility we heard this from, let us know, and we will take action. Yes, sir.
Yes, Richard DeGloria, Legislative Chairman, Chapter 1, Georgia. For anybody on the panel, concerning the $10 billion Veterans Reform Act that was recently passed and signed by the President, it's my understanding that the VA is required to have an offset within the Department of Veterans Affairs. Is that true?
There are some offsets that were built into the legislation, and most of those were extending programs that were already in place. And I'm trying to remember some of them, but one I think had to do with the home loan guarantee fee that is charged for veterans who don't have a compensable rating. And they've just extended some of those out to generate the offsets. I don't know if anyone has any specific information about some of the other programs, but most of those were just extensions of current programs in place.
Thank you.
Milt Batson, California, Chapter 45, recent commander, current adjutant and treasurer, and any other thing I can do. I was aware, which you've already mentioned, that as far back as 2002, there wasn't enough money being legislated, et cetera, et cetera. And just recently, so it's really well known by all of us sitting here. But recently, I had a VA clinician tell me, "Oh, there's plenty of money available." So my question is, do you have programs to indoctrinate the VA clinicians and the rest of the VA people that are coming in contact with the general public, so that you can be on the same track? Because there's a major disparity here, and it's not helping the VA, obviously.
We do meet regularly with AFGE. There's an arm of AFGE that you know, has the medical and doctors and nurses, and certainly you know, we try and make our information available to them. They're very open to looking at that, so we try in that way to make sure that they pass that information throughout to their people.
Well, they're employees, and employees can be instructed, and something like this causes a considerable amount of confusion, and it's very, very important, because there's too many not getting their assistance that they need rapidly enough. Thank you.
We have just one more question. Anyone else? Please feel free to stop into Paris 4 and ask us any questions you might have. Just one more. Yes.
Hi, I'm Ann Schaefer from Idaho, and I'm the Chapter 13 Commander, Senior Vice Commander of District 2, and the first Vice Junior Commander of the state of Idaho. I'm a combat veteran, and my question is, my TBI was not caused during an actual war situation, but I have 2 incidents that happened that were two falls, and they caused my TBI while I was on active duty. And so is that going to be addressed through the VA system? It hasn't been addressed at my facility in Boise.
We should talk after. If you have a chance to stop down, we can definitely guide you on.
I'm part of the National Women's Study, so will we have a chance to talk then?
Certainly, yes.
Okay, great.
That would be good.
Okay, I'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're going to be setting up now for...
Give me a second. I apologize, sir, but this question I know is very important to everybody standing over here.
Well, be quick.
Thank you. Commander Cortez, Chapter 114, San Antonio, Texas. This is in reference to the DBQ forms issued by the VA, questionnaire forms that have to be filled out by personal doctors from the VA. Why does the VA doctors are ordering technically not to be to fill out these forms, by the primary doctors.
We've addressed that with VA, and want to
Yeah,
give an update?
We've been meeting regularly with VA about those complaints because our NSOs are sharing that with us. And actually, we've got a number of questions for VA about the DBQs for the next seminar.
Okay, lastly is the service dogs. We have a lot of veterans that require service dogs, and the psychiatry section from VA has been ordered not to issue letters that are required by the airlines and different locations to be able to have the service dog. Why does they don't actually are able to do the letters for these veterans when they're treated by the VA doctors, no outside?
So that's actually a compliance issue. VA has policy in place that says if there's a form that a veteran requires a physician to fill out, that they should do that. So if you want to get with me after this, I can send you that policy, that directive.
Thank you very much, because it's going to be very useful for all the veterans in Texas. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you all for coming, and please stay for the next seminar. It should be very interesting and very informative. Thank you.